Tanah air kita dalam kancah peperangan. Tak ada makin runcing. Jepun dah hampir diperak.
Maknanya Jepun lebih hampir dengan kampung kita dari Singapura. Lagipun kena Andri bagi tahu Safi yang Jepun takkan berani tempat ini.
Mereka sendiri pernah kata Jepun takkan seram layar.
Serius tanda. Serius sugimashita.
彼らは英国人ではなく、マライの軍隊です。私の知るところでは、レフテナント・アドナン。
Kita takkan menang. Mungkin mereka akan menang, tapi bukan kerana kita tak melawan. Sekarang balik ke kubung kau. Baik, Tuan! Kalau kita teruskan perjuangan kita.
Assalamualaikum and hello to my lecturer and all my fellow friends. Have you seen the trailer just now? Isn't it amazing how Lieutenant Adnan and his troop fight for Tanah Melayu back then? By the way, I am Siti Aisyah Binti Kamarudin and my metric number is 2210478. Today my group will present to you about the problem identification and solution and also the strategies used in the Lieutenant Adnan movie by Azim M. Osman. But first, let's check it out with my friend Afiq about what he want to share. Okay?
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Nuur Afiq bin Shamsuri, matrix number 2210486. Today my group will explain the results of the study of the movie that we have watched, namely Lieutenant Adnan. For everyone's knowledge, the storyline of this movie is based on the true story. I will continue my presentation with the positive elements that contains in this movie. I used the SWOT method to analyze this movie. The positive element that contained in this movie is the quality and character shown by Lieutenant Adnan shows he is an excellent leader. Lieutenant Adnan is able to strategize warfare in bitter situation and direct his squad to complete the task. Adnan was chosen as the regiment's best recruit, later rising to the rank of sergeant in 1937. Adnan marched in a combined contingent representing the Federated Malay States at the coronation parade of King George V, receiving a coronation medal 9 years to the outbreak of World War II. He came to Singapore to attend an officer conversion course, earning his commission as a lieutenant and becoming company officer of the 7th Platoon in C Company of the Malay Regiment's 1st Battalion. Then Lieutenant Adnan and his troop was a courageous soldier who was willing to give everything, including his life for the people and nation, and they stood up in front of the line to stop Japanese from entering the Singapore. Lieutenant Adnan believed that no matter what, as a patriotic citizen, one had to fight until the last drop of blood to defend the nation. After that, second element positive is opportunities. An effective Japanese trick were a factor in Lieutenant Adnan's chances of defeating some Japanese troops. At one point, using a trick, they dressed like Punjabi soldiers and tried to trick Adnan into believing that reinforcements were coming. Their efforts were in vain as Adnan saw through their disguise. He knew that Punjabi soldiers always lined up in column 4, while Japanese in disguise advanced in column 3. He fired at them with Brand's pistol. His platoon managed to kill some soldiers and forced others to retreat. Then the Japanese retreat. Japanese army was forced to retreat due to fierce resistance from Company C. The opportunity was used. Lieutenant Adnan arranged a strategy with his squad to build the regiment's defensive fortification on high ground, known as the Gap. Despite having a large number of members, the Japanese army under Major Kimura failed to penetrate the defensive line at Gap.
Back with me, Siti Aisyah Binti Kamarudin. I will tell you the weaknesses and tricks from the SWOT analysis, which is the negative element. Weaknesses. The first is the lack of artillery. During the morning, the Japanese 56th Infantry Regiment led by Colonel Yoshinasu and backed by a large artillery force attacked the ridge. B Company of the Malay Regiment was one of the battalions defending the line. B Company was forced to evacuate the rear under heavy fire from the Japanese, who had artillery and a tank backup. Lieutenant Adnan ordered his men to retreat and follow Lieutenant Abbas, while he providing cover fire until the round has passed. When he battled Japanese soldier with his bayonet and fist, we knew he will never surrender. Second is difference in soldiers' number. Lieutenant Adnan, with just 42 men in his battalions, was in charge of a vital section of the British defence at Bukit Chandu, with a total force of 1,400 British soldiers, while Japan had 3,000 men on the ground. They conducted on an amphibious landing in northern Singapore and began moving south towards Pasir Panjang. This significant disparity influenced the Japanese victory over the British in Malaya. Next is threats. First is a traitor who leaks information. Ibrahim believed he was assisting Malaya in obtaining the independence that they deserved, but in reality, he was assisting Japan in colonizing Malaya more readily. He provided information about Malaya's topography, who the relevant officers were, and how their men functioned, as well as assisting Japan in learning some of the Malayan population's beliefs. As a result, Japan's plans for conquering Malaya are quite effective. Second is a coward soldier who discouraged others. Private Ayub was always frightened of the enemy, and he was commonly detected asking Lieutenant Adnan to withdraw and surrender. In contrast to Lieutenant Adnan, who intended to fight until the last drop of blood, Private Ayub believed that giving up was the best option. He was also envious of Lieutenant Adnan's achievement in many aspects. Private Ayub once said that fighting the colonizers and achieving independence is pointless. Lieutenant Adnan was giving a pep talk when he said something encouraging. Next, we will pass to Adawiyah about what she wants to share.
I am Rabiatul Adawiyah Zulkifli with matrix number 2210.472. I will continue with problems and solutions. Problems identification number 1 that I found was Japan has entered Malaya at Pantai Sabak Kota Baru. At Kota Baru on the northern coast of Malaya, Japanese soldiers began amphibious attack on December 8, 1941. It's the time of the Second World War. Soldiers from the Malay Regiment fought with them in the Battle of Kota Baru. These solutions: Lieutenant Adnan takes his troops to defend at Pasir Panjang, Singapore. Lieutenant Adnan and his 42-man battalion were stationed at Pasir Panjang village since it was close to the Alexandria region, a major British military troop tour. Problems identification number 2. Japanese soldiers were too many and Malay regiment were shortage of bullets. The fighting in the Pandan River still continued after the Pandan River bridge was destroyed. Japanese soldiers were too trained to continue to cross the river and put pressures on the Malay regiment. The surgeon told Lieutenant Adnan that they were out of bullets. Solution for these problems: Malay soldiers had to retreat to get house. To prevent losing any more men, Lieutenant Adnan advised his unit to retreat. To avoid being noticed by the Japanese Air Force, they used the forest route. And the next problems identifications: Japanese soldiers disguised as Punjabi soldiers. On the afternoon of 40 February 1942, several Japanese forces clothed in turbans and pretend to be British soldiers emerged on the opium hills as known locally Bukit Chandu. Solution is Lieutenant Adnan knew that there was a threat and he opened fire on them with a bring gun. He realized it was a ruse because they were marching in 4 rows instead of 3, as is customary in the British military. Around 22 Japanese were killed or injured, causing the rest of the force to retreat. The last problems identifications: Malay soldiers received sudden attacks from the air. The Japanese arrived with bomber planes and hundreds of soldiers on the evening of 40 February 1942. But Malay regiment soldiers kept firing until their weapons were too hot to hold. Lieutenant Adnan ordered them to charge against the invaders using only bayonets and fists as weapons. Last solutions: Malay soldiers quickly take covers and Lieutenant Abbas' troops quickly returned. Lieutenant Adnan ordered his men to retreat and follow Lieutenant Abbas' command. While he was giving cover fire before being critically injured and taken prisoners by the Japanese.
The first strategy used during the war against the Japanese army was to slow down the Japanese movement to Singapore. The Japanese saw it as a strategic port that could be used as a launching pad to attack other Allied interests in the area, and to strengthen the captured colonies, as well as a means of eliminating source of charitable and financial aid from Singapore that support Chinese dissidents. Second, determination to strive on. Malay soldiers were greatly influenced by Lieutenant Adnan's strong will of protecting what he holds dear to, which is his country. In their hearts, although they had knew all along that they will end up dead or tortured alive, and that the percentage of them winning the battle is very little, they refused to give up and that bit of flickering hope, because their leader Lieutenant Adnan bin Saidi did not and would never surrender to the likes of the Japanese army. Lastly, Lieutenant Adnan trusts his men. They are united and stand as one and helps each other. Lieutenant Adnan also joined the members in preparing defensive forts in preparation against the enemy. Adnan and his troops met a brave last stand at Opium Hill, which is Bukit Chandu, during the Battle of Pasir Panjang.
Thank you, Adawiyah and Afiq. Last but not least from me, Lieutenant Adnan bin Saidi's determination and his ever-persistent will to fight on gave him courage and the strength to face the enemies. And even though he was defeated physically, but mentally victory was on his side. This can be proved by his refusal to surrender to the bloody hands of the Japanese enemies, and thus had to suffer the crude torture by being hanged on a tree till their body rot and turned to ash. They gave him as the consequence. His true bravery is remembered by all. I think that's all from us. Thank you for watching.